Remember the moment Chennedy Carter delivered that hard hip check on Caitlin Clark while the ball wasn't even in play? At first, officials ruled it a common foul, but after reviewing the replay and seeing the reaction from fans everywhere, they upgraded it to a flagrant foul. That play quickly became one of the most talked about moments of the season and sparked non-stop debate about Carter's future in the league. Not long afterward, Carter struggled to find another WNBA opportunity in 2025. With no roster spot available, she continued her career overseas, playing in both Mexico and China to stay active and prove she still belonged at the professional level. Then, at the beginning of the 2026 season, the Las Vegas Aces gave her another shot. But that comeback didn't last long. Following a difficult stretch, head coach Becky Hammon and the Aces decided to move on, ending her time with the team and leaving her out of the WNBA once again. What do you think about Chennedy Carter's situation? Do you believe she deserves another opportunity in the WNBA, or was this the right decision? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
That may be it for Chennedy Carter, because if it didn't work with the Las Vegas Aces, I'm not so sure there are other WNBA teams that are willing still to take a chance, which is a shame because her talent is undeniable, but she seemingly hasn't been able to stay out of her own way long enough to stay in the WNBA.
Let's go back to June 1, 2024, when the Indiana Fever faced the Chicago Sky in one of the season's most memorable matchups. The game was close, with Indiana holding a narrow 1-point lead late in the fourth quarter. Moments earlier, Chennedy Carter had scored, and as the teams prepared for the next possession, everyone's focus shifted to the inbound play. Caitlin Clark turned away from Carter to get into position and receive the pass. That's when the unexpected happened. Instead of making a play on the live ball, Carter stepped into Clark and delivered a forceful hip check after the action had already stopped, knocking Clark to the hardwood in front of a packed arena.
Carter and Clark. I mean, that's clearly a foul which was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary? Chennedy Carter, I think that's going to be a flagrant one. And
what frustrated so many people was how the play was handled in real time. The officials watched the contact unfold and initially ruled it a common foul, treating it as if it were nothing more than routine physical play during the game. There was no immediate flagrant foul, no stronger penalty, and play moved on, despite Clark being knocked down when she wasn't even expecting contact. But the replay painted a much different picture. When the footage was slowed down, it became clear that Caitlin Clark had no idea the hit was coming. She had her back turned, wasn't battling for position, and wasn't involved in any scramble for the ball. Chennedy Carter wasn't pushed into the collision or thrown off balance either. Instead, she took a deliberate step and drove her hip into Clark, creating the contact herself. To many viewers, it looked far more intentional than accidental, especially since Clark was completely defenseless. Once those replay angles spread across social media, criticism of the original common foul call only grew louder, with many fans arguing the officials had badly underestimated what actually happened.
So she was signed to the Chicago Sky with Teresa Weatherspoon, with Angel Reese, with Camila Cardoso, and the rest of the folks. And then we get to the body check. This was originally ruled an away from the ball foul, but it was obviously a flagrant foul. It really upset a lot of people, which really escalated the issue. And it was really just poor sportsmanship on Kennedy.
After the game, the WNBA took another look at the incident through its standard review process for significant plays. Once league officials examined the replay, they decided the original ruling wasn't sufficient and upgraded the foul to a flagrant one. That meant the officiating crew had missed the severity of the contact during live action, and it took a post-game review to reach a different conclusion. For many fans, that was the biggest source of frustration. They felt the correct decision came only after the game was over, rather than when it could have had an immediate impact on the matchup. While the upgraded ruling ultimately reflected the league's final judgment on the play, many believed the response arrived far too late to change what had already happened on the court.
I wasn't expecting it, but I think it's just just respond, calm down, let your play do the talking. It is what it is. It's a physical game. Go make the free throw and then execute on offense, and I feel like that's kind of what we did, but and it is what it is, I guess.
What stood out to many people after the game was the difference in how the two players handled the situation. Caitlin Clark took a measured approach, explaining that basketball is an emotional and highly competitive sport, and that moments like this can happen when emotions run high. Rather than focusing on the foul itself, she quickly shifted the conversation back to the game, saying her team simply needed to convert its free throws and execute better on offense. She avoided escalating the controversy and kept her attention on basketball. Chennedy Carter, however, responded very differently during her media availability. When reporters asked about Clark, she immediately shut down the topic, saying, "I'm not answering any Caitlin Clark questions." She offered no further explanation or context before moving on. That brief exchange quickly spread across social media and, for many fans, became just as memorable as the on-court incident itself. In the years that followed, that response remained closely associated with Carter whenever the controversy was discussed.
And Kennedy, just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that moment between you and Caitlin. What was that play, what was said, and kind of what it led to?
Next question.
Yeah, like it seemed like she charged you a little bit.
Yeah,
After
I ain't answering no Caitlin Clark questions.
did she say anything to you?
I don't know what she said.
What'd you say to her?
I didn't say anything.
That's enough. We're good.
Many people believe it wasn't just the foul that affected Chennedy Carter's public image, it was the way she handled the aftermath. In a physical sport like basketball, hard fouls are often viewed as part of the game and can eventually fade from the headlines. But declining to address the incident at all gave the story a longer life. For a lot of casual fans, that response left a stronger impression than the contact itself. The media quickly focused on Carter's post-game comments, and her refusal to discuss Caitlin Clark became a recurring part of coverage surrounding the play. As the story continued to spread, that quote was repeatedly highlighted alongside the foul, keeping the controversy alive well beyond the game. While the hit itself lasted only a moment, many felt the way Carter responded had a much greater impact on how she was perceived over the following months. Once that reputation took hold, it became difficult to shake. By the time Carter later joined the Chicago Sky, conversations about her fit with the team and questions about her approach were already part of the discussion. Whether fair or not, those narratives continued to follow her and became an ongoing part of the story surrounding her career.
No doubt, Chennedy Carter is extremely talented, but she's got to get her head screwed on.
Chennedy Carter averaged 17.5 points per game during her time with the Chicago Sky, making her the team's top scorer. In a league where consistent offensive production is highly valued, numbers like that would normally make a player an obvious candidate for another contract. Teams rarely move on from their leading scorer unless there are concerns that go beyond what happens during games. That's why so many people were surprised when Chicago chose not to extend Carter a qualifying offer for the 2025 season, effectively ending her time with the franchise. When questions were raised about the decision, the conversation from team leadership wasn't centered on her scoring ability, shooting, or defensive play. Instead, one word kept coming up: fit. In professional sports, that term often carries a much broader meaning than basketball skills alone. It usually refers to how well a player meshes with teammates, coaches, and the overall culture of the organization. During Carter's time in Chicago, reports suggested there was noticeable tension within the locker room. Those kinds of issues don't appear on a stat sheet, but many believe they can have a significant impact on a team's chemistry and long-term success.
Seriously, she needs to do whatever she can to get some help, get her anger under control, where she will not have another incident like the one where she slammed into Caitlin Clark, but she's out of the league.
This also wasn't an isolated decision based on a single controversial moment. Before her time with the Chicago Sky, Chennedy Carter had already experienced difficult stops with both the Atlanta Dream and the Los Angeles Sparks. In Atlanta, she served a suspension during her tenure, and in Los Angeles, she eventually lost her place in the starting lineup before falling out of the rotation. When Chicago also decided to move on, many around the league viewed it as part of a larger pattern rather than a one-time reaction to negative publicity. Front offices pay close attention to a player's history, and information spreads quickly across the WNBA. While statistics always matter, a player's reputation, consistency, and fit within an organization can be just as influential when teams are making roster decisions.
Atlanta Dream did suspend her in the middle of the sophomore season, basically saying she was a detriment to the team and the team culture. So then the Atlanta Dream decided to trade her to the Sparks, the Los Angeles.
What happened after that was just as surprising. Despite averaging 17.5 points per game the previous season, Chennedy Carter went through the entire 2025 WNBA season without signing with a team. She didn't receive a training camp invitation or another roster opportunity, something that's uncommon for a player with proven scoring ability. In most cases, teams are willing to take a chance on someone who can consistently put points on the board. With no WNBA offers, Carter continued her career overseas, first playing in Mexico and later in China to stay active and keep competing. It was a dramatic change for a player who had been one of the league's more productive scorers only a year earlier. To many observers, the situation suggested that teams were weighing more than just her on-court production when making roster decisions. At the same time, Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever were experiencing the opposite trajectory. Game after game, arenas were packed, television audiences continued to climb, and Fever matchups became some of the most anticipated events on the WNBA schedule. While Carter was rebuilding her career overseas, Clark's presence was helping drive unprecedented attention to the league. The contrast between their paths became one of the most talked about storylines, highlighting the different directions their careers had taken and reflecting where much of the league's momentum and public attention had shifted.
It looks like she's blacklisted, and she will be playing professional basketball during the season, but it won't be for the WNBA.
Putting up points can earn a player opportunities, but talent alone isn't always enough to secure a place on a roster. Teams also consider chemistry, professionalism, and how well someone fits within the locker room. As the WNBA continued to attract more national attention than ever before, many organizations appeared increasingly cautious about taking on situations they believed could create unnecessary distraction. For many observers, that seemed to play a role in why Chennedy Carter remained without a WNBA team throughout the 2025 season. Heading into 2026, Carter appeared determined to reshape the conversation surrounding her career. After spending a long period largely out of the spotlight, she began appearing on podcasts and in interviews, giving fans a chance to hear directly from her. With free agency approaching and no WNBA contract in place, the timing immediately caught people's attention. It didn't take long for fans to start asking questions. Why speak publicly now after staying relatively quiet for so long? Why begin sharing her perspective just as teams were preparing to make roster decisions for the new season? Many believe the media appearances were part of an effort to change public perception, rebuild her reputation, and show WNBA organizations that she was ready for another opportunity.
Break down that situation that happened.
Yeah. So, in basketball a little bit, there's things called talking, what you like to call smack or whatever everybody likes to call it.
Yeah.
Plays before things are said, you know, that's a part of basketball.
As free agency approached, Chennedy Carter appeared on a podcast with streamer N3On, where she spoke publicly about the incident involving Caitlin Clark. Many viewers saw the interview as an opportunity for Carter to share her perspective and possibly reshape the narrative before teams began making roster decisions for the new season. During the conversation, Carter described the play as simply being part of basketball's physical nature, rather than acknowledging it as something outside the ordinary. She also suggested that Clark had made contact with her earlier in the game, pointing to that sequence as part of the overall context. For many fans, however, those comments didn't fully address why the hip check happened after the play had ended, with Clark turned away from the action. As a result, the interview sparked renewed debate instead of bringing the controversy to a close.
Think a play before, maybe I was elbowed. Okay, that happens. Think the next play down, maybe something was said, and then maybe there was like a little clip of somebody like yelling in my face. And then we go down the court, then I hit like a little bucket, you feel me? Come down, hit like a little nice little mid-range pull-up. And then I just like, you know, just give her like a little like, I'm here. Like, you know, I don't think it was, You know what's crazy? Me and my brother went back and watched, and we seen a lot of clips in the NBA of guys getting like pushing LeBron. Like I think it was Jeff Teague or somebody who like pushed LeBron out of bounds. Like said, man, I was mad because like we couldn't.
The challenge for Carter was that the play had already been viewed from every possible angle. The video was widely available, allowing fans to replay the sequence for themselves and compare it with what was said in the interview. Many viewers argued that the footage did not clearly support the explanation that the contact was simply a reaction to an earlier moment in the game. From the replay, Caitlin Clark appeared to have her back turned while preparing for the next possession, with the ball no longer in play when the contact occurred. That led many fans and analysts to conclude that the hip check looked separate from any previous exchange. Because of that, Carter's description of the incident as routine basketball physicality did not convince everyone who watched the interview. The discussion online quickly intensified, with social media users and basketball commentators comparing Carter's remarks to the video itself. For many, the interview came across less as an acknowledgement of a controversial moment and more as an attempt to explain or justify it. Whether people agreed with that interpretation or not, the disconnect between Carter's comments and how many viewers interpreted the replay kept the debate alive and ensured the interview generated even more attention instead of bringing the story to an end.
I'm just like, it's like one of those things like it happens in basketball. I know people try to say, oh, it's not one of those things.
It's not a personal thing. It's a competitive thing.
It happens in basketball, and like it's one of those things. But like, yeah, it's kind of what happened. Then it spiraled out of control.
And then the media takes whatever narrative they want to put out.
You watch every single game to see if you can find any deflects in my game, and like it's really nothing that you probably could say too much about. So then you have trolls, and that's why I said they're gonna be around regardless. But yeah, it was just like a nice little like tap, like I'm here, not to like harm you or anything. You know, if you want to push somebody, you're gonna like fool.
For many observers, the interview wasn't viewed in isolation because it came after several difficult chapters in Chennedy Carter's career. During her time with the Atlanta Dream, she was suspended following conduct-related issues. Later, with the Los Angeles Sparks, she eventually lost her place in the rotation. Then, after her stint with the Chicago Sky, the organization chose not to bring her back despite her strong scoring production. As those events accumulated, many around the league began looking at the bigger picture rather than focusing on any single incident. Front offices typically evaluate a player's entire history when making roster decisions, considering not only talent and statistics but also consistency, team fit, and past experiences with previous organizations. By the time the 2026 free agency period arrived, Carter's career included multiple stops, each accompanied by its own set of questions and public discussions. Whether those concerns were entirely fair or not, many believed they influenced how teams evaluated her. For organizations considering end-of-the-roster additions, some appeared unwilling to take on the uncertainty that they felt might come with the situation, choosing instead to pursue other options.
That happens, man. Like, it's one of those things. I'm a great player, she's a great player. It looks a certain way. Everybody's gonna have their views on it. But my personal view is, you know, I don't have anything against her. She's a great player, and so am I. And I've got buckets all that season, you know what I'm saying? So, just one of those things that, I love it though. They think I hate it. I love it. I love when it gets riled up and juicy like that.
You feed off of like what people say and shit, and it makes you more motivated.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Oh yeah, I love the hate. I love it.
Yeah.
While most WNBA teams chose not to pursue Chennedy Carter, one organization saw enough potential to offer her another opportunity. Despite the questions that had followed her throughout previous stops in the league, the Las Vegas Aces decided to sign Carter for the 2026 season, making a move that surprised many around the WNBA. Given everything that had happened over the previous 2 years, plenty of fans expected teams to stay away. Carter had spent the 2025 season playing overseas after going unsigned in the WNBA, and many believed the concerns surrounding her reputation would continue to limit her opportunities. Instead, Las Vegas became the franchise willing to take a chance and see whether she could make a positive impact. Early on, that decision appeared to be paying off. Coming off the bench, Carter quickly reminded people why she had always been considered one of the league's most talented scorers. She provided an instant offensive spark, averaging close to 19 points per game in her reserve role. Her explosive first step, ability to create off the dribble, and confidence as a shot maker looked much like they had during her best stretches with the Chicago Sky. For fans who had followed her career, it was a glimpse of the dynamic scorer they remembered and proof that her offensive talent had never disappeared.
How much is a headache worth? That's what the Las Vegas Aces were weighing in their mind, in my opinion. How much is a headache worth? How much is a talented player if it's a constant headache? And if you're trying to keep a culture, change a culture, and somebody's disrupting that culture, how much is a headache worth?
As the season went on, the conversation around Chennedy Carter began to change. She shared a series of posts on social media that many fans interpreted as expressing frustration over her role and playing time. Even though she had been productive offensively, Carter appeared unhappy with the number of minutes she was receiving, leading to speculation that she believed she deserved a larger role within the team's rotation. Around that same period, Carter also dealt with both an illness and an injury, which further disrupted her season and limited her opportunities on the court. As a result, her playing time became even more inconsistent. For a player whose game relies heavily on rhythm and offensive momentum, those interruptions made it more difficult to maintain the scoring impact she had shown earlier in the year. The changes quickly became noticeable in both her performance and the discussion surrounding her role with the Las Vegas Aces, a team led by four-time WNBA MVP A'ja Wilson.
Then the ego gets in the way. The ego gets in the way. She made a couple comments, being on a leash, all of that type of stuff. And honestly, you just gotta know your place. I know you know your value. Knowing your place and knowing your value is two different things.
The Las Vegas Aces didn't spend much time waiting to see whether the situation would improve. During the season, the organization made another roster move by bringing in additional backcourt depth, a decision that many fans viewed as a sign that Chennedy Carter's place on the team was no longer guaranteed. In professional basketball, adding a player at the same position can sometimes indicate that a team is preparing for possible changes within its rotation. As speculation continued, reports linked Carter's situation to possible tension involving A'ja Wilson. While those reports remained part of the public conversation, they fueled debate about why the Aces appeared willing to make changes so quickly. Wilson is widely recognized as the cornerstone of the franchise, and the team's championship aspirations are built around her leadership and production. For organizations competing for a title, maintaining strong locker room chemistry is often viewed as just as important as talent on the court. Coaches and front offices may overlook many challenges during a long season, but anything that could potentially affect the team's overall cohesion, especially around its franchise player, is often treated with significant urgency. Whether or not every report was accurate, the situation reinforced how much value championship teams place on stability, communication, and a unified locker room.
You know the girl got skills. However, if you always rubbing people the wrong way, you're not understanding your place. That team is A'ja Wilson's team. And when you snapping back to her and Chelsea Gray, the two leaders of that team, it's not going to end well for you because you don't produce and you don't contribute like they contribute.
As the season continued, every development involving Chennedy Carter seemed to receive extra attention because of everything that had happened earlier in her career. Ever since the incident with Caitlin Clark, fans and media closely followed her every move. Small storylines that might have passed quietly for another player often became major talking points, as many people viewed them through the lens of that previous controversy. When Becky Hammon addressed the team's decision to move on, her comments drew significant attention. As one of the WNBA's most respected coaches, with multiple championships and years of experience managing talented rosters, anything she says naturally carries weight. For many fans, the fact that Carter's time in Las Vegas came to an end under Hammon's leadership reinforced the belief that the concerns surrounding Carter extended beyond her basketball ability. Throughout her career, Carter's talent as a scorer has rarely been questioned. Multiple organizations gave her opportunities because of the offensive skills she brings to the floor. At the same time, each stop also brought new questions about consistency, team fit, and locker room chemistry. Whether those concerns ultimately defined her career is something fans continue to debate, but they have remained a recurring part of the conversation. Meanwhile, the the Indiana Fever have continued building around a young core that includes Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull, and Sophie Cunningham. The focus has largely remained on player development, team chemistry, and continued improvement as the franchise looks toward long-term success. Now it's your turn to weigh in. Do you think Chennedy Carter deserves another chance in the WNBA, or do you believe teams have made the right decisions? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest WNBA news and updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.